Welcome to Nightfall Narrative. If you believe the most powerful stories often begin in the dark, when no one is watching, then you found the right channel. Settle in, because this is a story about a long, quiet night of hard work and the brilliant dawn that followed. There it was, the look I had been waiting years for, the one who said everything she ever thought about me was dead wrong. She'd called me incompetent, a failure. She openly told anyone who would listen that her son, my husband, could have done so much better. For years, her voice was this corrosive whisper in the back of my mind, just eating away at my confidence until there was almost nothing left. But in that one moment, as she finally laid eyes on what I had built in secret, her shock was my validation. To understand why this moment meant everything, why I had meticulously, almost obsessively, engineered this exact outcome, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to go back to the day I became the family disappointment. It all started subtly. My mother-in-law, Laura, is a woman carved from granite and strong opinions. In her world, there's a right way to do everything, and that way is, without fail, her way. When I first married her son, Mark, I was so eager to please, to be accepted. I saw her as this formidable matriarch, the unshakable core of their world, and I just desperately wanted her approval. I tried. I really, truly tried. I'd bring over my best attempt at a casserole, only for her to poke it and say, "It's a bit dry, dear. Next time, use cream of mushroom soup. The Campbell's kind, not the generic." Her criticisms were like 1,000 tiny paper cuts. They were small enough that I'd sound petty if I complained, but they bled all the same. When our first child, Lily, was born, the cuts got deeper. Laura would visit, unannounced of course, and survey my home with the discerning eye of a health inspector. "Are you sure you're feeding her enough? She looks a little small for her age," she'd say, picking a microscopic piece of lint off the pristine baby blanket I just washed. My parenting choices were always met with a sigh and a story about her own superior methods. "When I raised my kids, we never let them cry it out," she'd declare, conveniently forgetting all the times Mark told me stories of being left in his crib for hours. Every comment was designed to undermine me, to position her as the expert and me as the bumbling, incompetent novice. I was a stay-at-home mom, a role I chose and cherished, but in Laura's eyes, it was a sign of my lack of ambition. A woman's worth, in her view, was measured by the gleam on her countertops and the silence of her children. My house was lived in, and my daughter was a spirited, happy toddler. To Laura, this was chaos. This was a failure. The worst part was how it seeped into my own head. I started to believe her. I'd find myself scrubbing the kitchen floor at midnight, not because it was dirty, but because I was terrified of her popping by for one of her surprise inspections. I'd second-guess every single parenting decision, her voice a constant, critical echo. Am I doing this right? Am I enough? I felt my confidence, which was once a bright and sturdy thing, just crumbling into a pile of dust. Mark, bless his heart, was caught in the middle. He loved his mom, but he loved me too. So his approach was simple: avoidance. "That's just how she is, honey. Don't let it get to you," he'd say, a phrase that offered precisely zero comfort. He saw the individual comments as harmless quirks, completely missing the cumulative effect, the relentless dripping that was wearing me down. He didn't get that his mother wasn't just offering advice. She was waging a quiet war against my confidence, and she was winning. I remember one Sunday dinner at her house vividly. I'd spent all morning making this beautiful tiered lemon cake from scratch for her birthday. I was so proud of it. I carried it to the table, my hands trembling a little under the weight of my hope. She looked at it, her lips pursed into a thin line. "Oh, that's ambitious," she said. "Not thank you." Not "it's beautiful," just ambitious. As if to say, "You've aimed too high." During dessert, she took one delicate bite, chewed it thoughtfully, and then set her fork down. "A little too much zest," she announced to the whole table. "It throws off the balance. Store-bought is just more consistent, you know." I felt my face flush hot. I looked at Mark, pleading with my eyes for him to say something, anything. He just gave this weak smile and said, "I like it, Mom." His defense was so feeble it was almost another insult. The rest of the family took their cue from Laura, just pushing the cake around their plates. I felt like a little kid who had presented a messy drawing to a panel of art critics. Small, foolish, and utterly incompetent. That night I went home and cried. Not loud, angry sobs, but the quiet, hopeless tears of someone who is just tired of fighting a battle they know they can't win. I was losing myself. Laura's version of me, the disorganized, incapable, not quite good enough wife and mother, was starting to feel more real than the person I knew I was. I could feel myself shrinking, trying to become smaller and smaller to fit into the tiny box of her expectations, a box I was never meant to occupy. The wound was deep, and it was festering. I knew something had to change. I just had no idea what. The breaking point didn't show up with a bang. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, under the fluorescent lights of a crowded grocery store. It was just one of those days. Lily, who was 3 at the time, had decided that gravity was a fun new game to play with every single item I put in the cart. I was exhausted. Our second child, a baby boy named Sam, was home with a slight fever, and I'd been up with him most of the night. My hair was in a messy bun. I was wearing yoga pants with a suspicious stain on the knee, and I probably looked exactly like the frazzled mom Laura always described me as. As I was wrestling a jar of applesauce back from Lily, I heard a voice that made my entire body go rigid. "Well, look what the cat dragged in." It was Laura, and she wasn't alone. She was with 2 of her friends, women I knew from family gatherings, both of them impeccably dressed, with perfectly coiffed hair. They looked at me, then at my cart filled with a chaotic mix of baby gear and toddler snacks, and then back at me. Their eyes were a symphony of pity and judgment. "We were just on our way to our book club," Laura said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "It's so lovely that you get to be so casual during the day." One of her friends smiled a tight, plastic smile. "Oh, Laura, you must be such a help to her. I remember those days, utter chaos." I wanted the floor to just swallow me whole. I tried to force a smile. "Just grabbing a few things," I mumbled, my face burning with humiliation. But Laura wasn't done. She peered into my cart. "Goldfish crackers? And is that a squeezable yogurt tube? You know, Sarah, all that processed food is just terrible for their development. When Mark was little, I made all his food from scratch. It really isn't that hard if you just manage your time properly." There it was again. The implication was that I was lazy, incompetent, that my struggles were just my own personal failings. In front of her friends in the middle of a grocery store, she was dissecting my life, my choices, my motherhood. I looked at her, and for the first time, the hurt was replaced by a flash of cold, hard anger. "My kids are happy and healthy, Laura," I said, my voice much steadier than I expected. She just laughed, a light, dismissive little sound. "Oh, of course, dear. We all do our best, I suppose." She turned to her friends. "She's such a sensitive soul. It's a shame she never pursued a career. A little project of her own might have given her some focus." They walked away, their laughter echoing down the aisle, leaving me standing there next to my cart, feeling about 2 inches tall. I felt exposed, humiliated, and just incandescently angry. It wasn't about the yogurt tubes or the messy bun. It was the complete and utter dismissal of my life, the life I was pouring my heart and soul into. The idea that because I wasn't climbing a corporate ladder or running a perfect, sterile household, I was a failure, a project, a charity case for her son. That night, after the kids were asleep, I told Mark what happened. I didn't cry this time. My voice was calm, almost detached. I relayed the whole conversation, word for word. I watched his face shift from discomfort to guilt. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. She shouldn't have done that," he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "Sorry isn't enough anymore, Mark. Your silence is an endorsement. Every time you stand there and let her chip away at me, you're telling her she's right." I took a deep breath. This is our life, our family, not her second chance at motherhood. We need to be a team, a united front, or this will break us. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I think for the first time, he finally understood the depth of the damage. He saw that this wasn't just about his mother's quirks. This was about my survival in our own family. "You're right," he said softly. "You're right, no more, I'm with you. What do we do?" And in that moment, a tiny, defiant spark ignited in the cold space where my confidence used to be. The breaking point wasn't just about being humiliated. It was about realizing her validation was a prize I was never, ever going to win. And if I couldn't win it, I would have to create my own. "She thinks I need a project," I said, the ghost of a smile on my lips. "She thinks I'm incompetent and have no ambition." A plan, wild and audacious, started to form in my mind. "Okay, let's give her a show, but she won't be in the audience. She won't even know the curtain is up until the final act." I decided right then and there, I was done trying to prove her wrong. I was just going to be right, in secret. The idea was born from my biggest insecurity, motherhood. Laura's constant criticism about how I was raising my kids had, ironically, forced me to become an expert. I'd spent countless nights reading parenting blogs, developmental psychology articles, and educational theory, all in a desperate attempt to feel adequate. In all that research, I discovered a real gap in the market. There was a flood of plastic, noisy, overstimulating toys, but a surprising lack of simple, beautiful, open-ended educational toys based on modern child development principles. Toys that encouraged creativity, not just button pushing. My project was called Curious Cub. And so the secret grind began. My life became a game of stolen moments. My days were still filled with diapers, park visits, and breaking up toddler fights. But my nights belonged to Curious Cub. After I'd put Lily and Sam to bed, after Mark and I had a quick chance to connect, I'd creep downstairs to the small desk crammed into the corner of our laundry room. That little corner became my entire world. The first few months were a blur of learning. I consumed everything I could about e-commerce, product design, and supply chains. I taught myself design software by watching hours of online tutorials, my eyes burning from the screen. I sketched out my first product line, a set of Montessori-inspired wooden blocks designed to teach foundational physics concepts through play. They were simple, elegant, and everything I wished I'd had for Lily. Mark was my silent partner, my co-conspirator. He saw the fire in my eyes and protected it fiercely. When Laura would call and say, "I'm 5 minutes away, just dropping something by," he would run interference. "Now's not a good time, Mom. Sarah's not feeling well," or "We're in the middle of a project with Lily." He became a master of deflection, creating this protective bubble around my secret work. He'd take over the late-night baby feedings so I could get a solid 2-hour block of focus. He was finally, truly my partner. There were so many setbacks. My prototype samples from a potential supplier were just awful. The wood was splintered and the paint was uneven. It was a crushing blow. I remember sitting on the laundry room floor, holding this lopsided wooden arch, feeling that familiar sting of failure. Laura's voice echoed in my head, "You're not a business person. You're just not built for this." But this time, something was different. The anger from that day in the grocery store had hardened into resolve. I didn't throw the block away. I photographed it, circled every single flaw, and wrote a firm, professional email to the supplier detailing exactly why it was unacceptable. I was no longer a people pleaser looking for approval. I was a business owner demanding quality. I found a new supplier, a small family-owned workshop that cared about craftsmanship. It cost more, which meant dipping into our meager savings. It was terrifying. Mark and I had a long, tense conversation over our kitchen table with the numbers laid out between us. It was a huge risk. "I believe in this," I told him, my voice shaking but my gaze steady. "I believe in me." He looked at me with this new kind of respect in his eyes and said, "Then I believe in you too." The first batch of inventory arrived on 3 huge pallets, filling our garage. I spent weeks packing the first 100 boxes myself, writing a personal thank you note for every single order. My first sale came from a mom blogger in Ohio, whom I had nervously reached out to. When the notification popped up on my phone, I let out a whoop of pure joy. It was only $34, but it felt like $1 million. The business grew slowly, then all at once. That mom blogger wrote a glowing review. A few others followed. My Instagram page, filled with beautiful, authentic pictures of my own kids playing with toys, started getting traction. Orders trickled in, then they flowed. Within 6 months, I had to hire a part-time student just to help me pack and ship from the garage. All the while, I maintained the facade. To Laura, I was still just Sarah, the unambitious stay-at-home mom. Her visits were as critical as ever. One afternoon, she stopped by and saw me on my laptop at the kitchen table. "Still playing on that computer, I see," she said with a sigh. "You know, if you put that much energy into polishing the silver, this place might actually sparkle." I just smiled serenely. "I'll add it to the list, Laura." Little did she know, I was in the middle of negotiating a major order with a boutique toy store chain. The contrast was so ridiculous that it was almost funny. She was critiquing my housekeeping while I was building an empire from her son's laundry room. The grind was relentless. There were nights I was so tired I could barely see straight. I sacrificed sleep, social events, and any semblance of downtime. But it wasn't a joyless process. With every new 5-star review, with every email from a parent telling me how much their child loved my products, I felt a piece of my old self being rebuilt. This wasn't about proving Laura wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right. Success wasn't just the money. It was the profound satisfaction of creating something valuable from nothing, but an idea and sheer force of will. 1 year in, I had to move the business out of the garage and into a small warehouse space. I hired my first 2 full-time employees. The revenue numbers were getting serious. Mark and I would look at the spreadsheets at night with this sense of giddy disbelief. It was real. I had done it. But the secret remained locked away, a ticking time bomb of vindication, just waiting for the perfect moment to detonate. Stories like this, where the hard work happens in the shadows, are what we're all about here at Nightfall Narrative. If you've ever felt underestimated, If you've ever had to fight for your own worth in secret, then this is the channel for you. Hit subscribe and join our community because the reveal is coming, and trust me, it's worth the wait. The perfect moment presented itself gift-wrapped in irony: Mark's 40th birthday. Laura, of course, immediately took charge. She envisioned a stuffy, formal dinner at her country club, a place where she could hold court and subtly remind everyone of her family's status. "I've already put a deposit down," she announced to us one Sunday. "It will be a wonderful, elegant affair. I'll handle all the arrangements, Sarah. You just worry about getting the children presentable." An image flashed in my mind. Me, standing awkwardly in a corner of the ballroom, trying to keep Lily from spilling juice on the carpet, while Laura paraded around accepting compliments on her party for her son. The old me would have just meekly agreed, but the new me saw an opportunity. That evening, I sat down with Mark. "I have an idea," I said, a mischievous glint in my eye, "a counter-proposal." He grinned. "I'm listening." "You're turning 40. We are not doing a stuffy country club dinner. We're going to throw you the party you actually want. A huge, fun, relaxed blowout, and we're going to host it." "Host it where? Our house isn't big enough for that." "No," I said, taking a deep breath. "Not at the house. I'm going to rent out the loft, that beautiful modern event space downtown. We'll have a live band, amazing caterers, an open bar, everything." Mark's eyes widened. "Sarah, that sounds incredible, but that would cost a fortune. There's no way we can." He trailed off as he saw the look on my face. The realization dawned. "Curious Cub will pay for it," I said softly. "All of it. It'll be my gift to you." Tears welled up in his eyes. He pulled me into a fierce hug. "You are unbelievable," he whispered into my hair. The next day, Mark called his mother. The conversation, which I listened to on speakerphone, was a masterclass in setting boundaries. "Mom," he started, his voice firm and calm, "I really appreciate you wanting to plan the party, but Sarah and I have decided we want to do something different. We're going to handle it." Laura was flabbergasted. "What do you mean, you'll handle it? A party of this scale requires proper planning and a budget. This is not the time for one of Sarah's little DIY projects." "It's not a DIY project, Mom," Mark said patiently. "It's all taken care of. We're hosting it at the loft downtown. All you and Dad have to do is show up and have a good time." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. "The loft?" she finally sputtered. "Mark, do you have any idea how much that place costs? This is fiscally irresponsible. I knew she was a bad influence on your finances." "Mom," Mark interrupted, his voice like steel, "the decision is made. It's my 40th birthday, and this is what we're doing. The finances are handled. I need you to respect that." She huffed, but she had no choice but to back down. For the next month, she was a storm cloud of passive aggression. She'd make comments like, "I just hope you haven't put yourselves into terrible debt for one night, and I suppose we'll just have to see if Sarah can actually pull this off." She had no idea I wasn't just pulling it off, I was orchestrating a masterpiece. I hired the best event planner in the city. The caterer was a celebrity chef. The band was a popular funk group that always sold out its shows. Every detail was meticulously planned, all paid for from my business account. I was a ghost director, my name on every contract, my vision behind every choice, but I remained completely invisible. The night of the party arrived. Over 100 guests, family, friends, Mark's colleagues streamed into the stunning space. The room was boozy. Waiters circulated with champagne and incredible appetizers. The band was already playing a smooth, infectious groove. It was, by all accounts, the party of the year. I watched Laura arrive. She paused at the entrance, her eyes sweeping across the room. I could see the confusion on her face. This was not the amateur, budget-strapped affair she had pictured. This was sophisticated, expensive, polished. She saw Mark's boss, the CEO of a major firm, laughing with friends. She saw respected community figures at the bar. Her own sense of social superiority was visibly faltering. She found me by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I was talking with the caterer about the dinner schedule, wearing a simple but elegant black dress, feeling calmer and in control than I had in years. "Well, Sarah," she said, her tone a confused mix of condescension and grudging admiration. "I must admit, this is more than I expected. Mark must have gotten a very large bonus this year to afford all of this." I just smiled. "Mark deserves the best," I said, letting her assumption hang in the air. "I'm so glad you're impressed." I walked away, leaving her there to ponder the source of this inexplicable wealth. The stage was set. The audience was seated. All that was left was for the main character to unwittingly deliver the climax. The reveal wasn't a grand, public announcement. It was quieter, more intimate, and 1,000 times more powerful. And it came, just as I had hoped, from someone else. About an hour into the party, Mark took the stage to give a thank you speech. He talked about his friends, his family, and how happy he was to reach this milestone. Then, he looked directly at me, his eyes shining. "But none of this," he said, his voice thick with emotion as he gestured around the magnificent room, "would be possible without the most incredible person I know. My wife, Sarah." A polite smattering of applause went through the room. I saw Laura in the crowd, a tight, forced smile plastered on her face. She probably thought he was just giving me the obligatory spousal shout-out. "For the past 2 years," Mark continued, "while being the most amazing mother to our 2 children, Sarah has been quietly building something extraordinary. She has poured her heart, her intelligence, and her relentless hard work into a secret project. A project born out of her passion for our kids." The room quieted down, a ripple of curiosity spreading through the guests. I kept my eyes locked on Laura. Her smile was frozen, her posture rigid. "Tonight," Mark said, his voice ringing with pride, "this entire party, this venue, the food, the band, is her gift to me. It was paid for entirely by the company she built from scratch in our laundry room. A company that is now one of the fastest-growing educational toy brands in the country." A collective gasp went through the crowd, followed by an eruption of stunned, enthusiastic applause. People were turning to look at me, their faces a mix of shock and admiration. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at Laura. And there it was, the look. It wasn't just shock. It was a complete system failure. It was the blue screen of death for her entire worldview. Her jaw had gone slack, her perfectly applied lipstick suddenly looking clownish. Her eyes, which for years had only ever held judgment or pity for me, were wide with utter, uncomprehending disbelief. It was the face of a person whose fundamental understanding of reality had just been shattered. The condescending smile was gone, replaced by a vacant stare. The smug certainty that had defined her for a decade had just evaporated, leaving behind a raw, exposed confusion. In her mind, I was the incompetent one, the failure, the one who couldn't manage her time or her household. That narrative was simple and absolute, and in 30 seconds, Mark had ripped it to shreds. For a moment that stretched into an eternity, she just stared at me. Her brain was visibly trying to compute the impossible. The woman she had dismissed as a sensitive soul with no ambition had just funded this lavish event. The failure was a success. The narrative was wrong. She was wrong. Then her eyes darted to her husband, to her friends standing nearby, all of whom were now looking from me back to her. I saw a flicker of something new in her expression: humiliation. The same humiliation she had inflicted on me in that grocery store was now being reflected at her, 100-fold, in a room full of her peers. The power dynamic between us, so firmly established for so long, hadn't just shifted. It had been annihilated. In that one glorious, silent moment, I was no longer the daughter-in-law desperate for her approval. I was the architect of a reality she couldn't even fathom. Her shock was my validation, not because it was vengeful, but because it was definitive. It was the final, undeniable proof that her opinion of me was, and always had been, utterly and completely irrelevant. In the moments after Mark's speech, I was surrounded. Friends and family crowded around me, hugging me, asking a million questions, their voices buzzing with excitement. Through the crowd, I saw Laura. She didn't come over. She seemed to shrink, melting back into the edges of the party. For the rest of the night, she was quiet, a ghost at the feast she thought she was meant to command. She offered no congratulations, no apology. Her silence said more than any words could have. The drive home was quiet. Mark reached over and took my hand. We didn't need to say anything. We had done it together. The next week, a small, expensive-looking bouquet arrived at our door. The card simply said, "Congratulations." Laura. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the years of criticism. But it was, in its own way, a white flag, a surrender. Our relationship has changed, of course. It's not warm, and it never will be. That chasm of the past is too wide to cross completely. But the criticism has stopped. It has been replaced by a wary, cautious respect. She asks about my business now, her questions tentative, as if she's afraid of the answers. She no longer offers unsolicited advice on my parenting or my housekeeping. The power to critique me is gone, because the foundation it was built on, her belief in my incompetence, has been completely obliterated. But here's the most important lesson I learned. The look on her face, as deeply satisfying as it was not the real victory. It was a beautiful, cinematic moment for sure, but the real prize wasn't her shock. It was my own transformation. The ultimate validation wasn't seeing her realize I wasn't a failure. It was *me* realizing it. It was in the moment I chose to risk our savings on a better supplier. It was in that first sales notification popping up on my phone. It was in hiring my first employee. It was me, sitting at my little desk in the laundry room, night after night, choosing to believe in myself when someone so close to me refused to. I started this whole journey to prove her wrong, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being about her at all. It became about me. It became about building a life on my own terms, defining my own success, and finding my worth not in the reflection of someone else's eyes, but in the work of my own hands and the strength of my own spirit. Her shock was the cherry on top, but the success, the confidence, the self-respect, that was the cake. And I had baked it all by myself. Thank you for joining us on Nightfall Narrative. My story had its moment of vindication, but the real victory was the journey. If you have a story about finding your power when everyone else doubts you, share it in the comments below. We build this community by sharing the stories of our quiet battles. For more tales about the underdog's triumph and how the darkest nights lead to the brightest dawns, subscribe to Nightfall Narrative and hit the notification bell. Because the most powerful stories are the ones we live when we decide to write our own ending.